Hello, everyone. Welcome to this podcast or recording. I'm Rafael Moya Palacios, and I'm the president of Dialogues for Democracy. And we have one of our members named Gabriel Munoz, who wrote a whole story on January 6th on what happened at the protest or insurrection. And I would like for you to guys to enjoy this. So, thank you very much.
On January 6, 2021, an angry mob just made history by pushing through the doors of Congress to stop the election certification. If today's events really taught me something, it is that democracy is truly an act that we must practice every day. It is not, and never will be, a given. Coming from a place where democracy has not been a given since I came into this world, shaped the way I think about it, or at least it has a great influence. I always thought that democracy had been captured, locked up somewhere, or even exiled forever. Democracy had always been a state or an invisible force by some act of magic, protects the liberties of everyone. Sadly, democracy is not a shield that protects people from injustice and bigotry as I thought when I was a child. It is not an almighty force, neither nor an indestructible or irrevocable. Democracy is weak. Probably the concept of democracy will never be depicted as weak by any other person, at least not referring to the great Western democracies. But it is rational to deduct democracy is fragile and weak due to the fact that it is dependent on who one might think, the people.
Historically speaking, relying on other humans to maintain certain dogmas or pre established norms had always been doomed to failure, as evidenced by most notoriously the French Revolution. Perhaps a more contemporary example could be the Russian Revolution. For better or for worse, these revolutions continue to evidence how the basis of society and its principles are not set in stone. For starters, they are all arguably social constructs and therefore they do not exist out of society. They are constantly evolving and changing as our human reasoning does too. Democracy is no exception to change. The first concept of democracy in Greece was implemented as a wildly different institution than the modern one. Although it idealized collective decision making, only a few enjoyed the benefits of democracy. Only those who were considered citizens could partake in the decision making process. This archaic adaptation, also implemented by modern democracies such as the American one, that suppressed African American people for years, keeping them from partaking in the democratic process.
Jumping back into the present, now all citizens of at least the United States can express their opinions in popular vote. The battle to attain a strong democracy that the younger generations can enjoy seems won already. People can finally rest, or so the majority of people have thought in the last couple of decades. Today has struck most of us with the reality that democracy has been fractured by politicians or our own federal government, but also by each and every one of the individuals that live in this country for not practicing democracy and actively defending it every day. Democracy as an act might seem symbolic and just recurring every 2 years in an election, but it goes further beyond the barriers of politics. Democracy is the act of establishing common ground with those people who think differently because our well being as a society depends on it. Clearly, that has seemed to fail. The extremism I witnessed today reminds me of home, a broken home that most people call Venezuela, a country that was devastated by polarization and the negligence of democracy, the assumption that because it was already there, democracy could not go away.
Today, on January 6th, I felt like I had not felt in the 2 years that I've been living in the United States. I felt the despair, the anger, and the fear of the people with whom I share a country, a living space. On January 6th, I realized that even the stronger democracies are fragile because of the negligence of ourselves towards the other people, people that we tend to dehumanize and antagonize from both political spectrums. People who think differently are no longer referred to as neighbors, coworkers, or peers. They have become the enemy, a public enemy with which a conversation is not possible, and neither is negotiation. The worst part is that we have gotten used to it being that way. It is, as some might say, the new normal. Democracy is not totally lost yet, but it is hurt today, and so am I. It is unexpected for democracy to feel this way, endangered by its own creators, but hopefully it is a wake up call for at least some people that what we have been doing the last couple of years is to forget to practice democracy every day. After all, democracy is an exercise, and like the physical exercise, The longer you don't practice it, the longer it will be to get back to it.
Thank you, guys. My name is Dr. Mitchell, and I'm one of the advisors for Dialogues for Democracy. And I want to invite Gabriel to say a few words about how he felt when he was writing this.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabriel. Um, so essentially, I wrote this while I was watching the Senate vote on the election on January 6th. It was already like past midnight. And, I was just watching it, watching the democratic process that was attempted to, be overthrown earlier that day. And, I was just feeling powerless. I was feeling helpless, like I couldn't do anything. It was just, what would have happened if that mob were to be successful? What will be of, the country that day? Will have been, will the people have done something? Or, will be trapped into like a civil war? It was just a lot of questions that were circling through my mind, and I was just frustrated. And to be honest, I was feeling a little bit angry, you know, and I just felt like I had always failed in Venezuela at home. It was just this sense of powerless, the sense of, I can't do anything. It's just the way it is that, it just didn't sit right with me. And I just chose to express myself that way, because in those kind of situations, you have two options. You can get violent like the mob and generate more violence, or you can actually write something, or, just express your feelings so that you can hope that the other part of the argument can read it and, generate a discussion about it instead of just inciting more violence.
Thank you, Gabriel. So those of you who were reading it, or Rafael who introduced it, let's go. Rafael, you're from Venezuela as well. Did you have a reaction when you saw what was happening on that day?
Well, yeah, basically, it reminded me of what happened on the Venezuelan Independence Day with the actual Congress, the new Congress, the one elected legitimately by the people of Venezuela with more than 15 million votes in 2015, where they were giving honors to our um, to our Libertador Simon Bolivar, and out of nowhere, this a violent mob from the Maduro regime, literally attacked and almost killed senators and National Assembly officials, almost killed with guns, with sticks, and it basically reminded me of that and how this country, if they were to be successful, would have turned out to be like that, into maybe into an authoritarian or a dictatorship, like how it is in Venezuela.
So it was kind of scary to see that you came here to get away from that. And it was, I know some of you guys were scared because I saw your texts in the chats. I know, Jorge, you had some things to say in the chat. What was in your head that day?
Well, that day I had just gone to MDC because I had to pick up a transcript, and I heard about the what was happening on when I was driving home, but I heard it through the radio, so I didn't have a visual. I didn't see how bad things were, so I was shocked that people were doing what they were doing, that they were storming the Capitol. But I was also anxious because I didn't know what was happening. Like, it's something unprecedented. So when I got home and I turned on the TV and I saw that people were literally inside the Capitol, I felt fear, because that's like one of the most essentially sacred places, something that hasn't been stormed or infiltrated in hundreds of years. So I was very scared that day.
What about you, Luis?
Well, when I was also in a similar situation to Jorge, where I was actually taking my driver's license exam that day, and as soon as I had finished doing the test, I was getting a lot of messages from actually you guys in the chat, and I was like honestly not only shocked but like confused. I didn't really like understand what was going on, and when people were saying that people were trying to like break into the Capitol building, I was like I didn't even believe it until I searched it up, and when I searched it up and I understood what was going on, it really like put into perspective something that I hadn't really thought about before, and that's that, you know, as democratic as a system might be, in the end of the day, as like blunt as this might sound, it can get tarnished by the people, and it was something that we were living, literally, and we were being witness to, and it was occurring live and in stereo, like right in front of us. So
What about you, Angeles?
For me, I didn't like fear wasn't my first emotion to it at first. I just didn't feel anything. I was just kind of rethinking history and I was like, like I was very pensive about it for a while and I just remember things from A Push like the Wilmington massacre and I was like, well, things like this have happened before. I'm not I'm not that surprised. But it was just kind of when it really like hit me was when I saw the actual videos of police officers letting people in. I was that's like kind of that's I feel like when I like kind of like the fear set in a little bit where I was like it's the people that we have trusted to foster our democracy are the ones not doing that job, like the people in the Capitol who like we elected or have put in that those position of powers to speak for us. A lot of them weren't doing that or weren't protecting like the democratic process. So that's when for me it got a little scary where I felt like okay, then what was the point of all of this? I felt a bit helpless, like Gabriel said. But yeah, at first I was very like I was more of like pensive about it. I had to like really take a moment with like what was really happening, and then when I really like realized like oh like this is what's happening, it's like kind of when like the mix of emotions started to set in.
And you, Leah?
So to anyone that might be watching or listening this that's Hispanic, they could probably vouch that our Hispanic parents are pretty opinionated when it comes to these types of things. They're always the first ones to engage on these types of conversations at the dinner table. But I realized that it was something to a different degree when I go to the living room and I see that my parents are completely silent, just watching what's going on. And that's when I started to understand a bit of the gravity of the situation because, again, talking about, being Hispanic, when our parents, even some of us here, like Gabriel, Rafa, Angeles, come to America, these are the types of things that you don't expect to see. And so for a while now, I had just become desensitized and very indifferent towards what had been going on. And it really made me become aware. Even Gabriel's piece did this to me that I really need to be more aware of everything going on because realistically, we are the people that at the end of the day, these who are, us self-aware, anybody that's listening, that's deciding this is something important, that you can do something about this. And yeah, for me, it was more of like an epiphany about I need to be more aware of everything going on.
So, Gabriel, do you want to wrap it up with anything about your own piece that you wrote? Or do you want me to wrap it up?
As you wish. I mean, um, I just would like to say to people that, hopefully they will take that as a call to action and they will be more aware of what's happening, not only in America, but in the world. And, if every one of us does what it's within our power, we can accomplish great things, like, for example, maintaining a democracy, which it's pretty important for the most of us. Um, so yeah, that's all I have to say for now.
And I would like to just point out at the end of Gabriel's piece where he said, people who think differently are no longer referred to as neighbors, coworkers, or peers. They have become the enemy. And we've gotten used to it being that way. And I think the most important thing, that to me was the most important thing you said, because before we're Republicans or Democrats or Latins or Norwegian or Baptist or whatever, we're human. And if we can find that humanity in each person that we come in contact with, that's going to allow us to do that thing that Gabriel's talking about, where, he said, people we tend to dehumanize and antagonize. So if we can see each other as human always, we'll be able to keep that democracy going. So thank you guys. I think this was amazing. Thank you very much. And we're going to stop recording now.